This is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics, including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more.
I haven't had really crazy hot flashes lately. Um, like in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I feel like I'm on fire.
Yes. Hmm.
And that was one of the things I had like my annual and and I was like, well, let me go ahead and talk to her about this. So, yeah, I'm glad I did. It really put some things in perspective for me.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like you got good information from your doctor?
Yeah, I do. I've honestly most of the stuff I'd already learned, and some of it from you,
Hmm.
or a lot of it from you. Uh, but my only my kind of qualm was that, well, here are your options: estrogen or uh, depression medicine.
Right.
And so I'm kind of like, I don't really want to do either of those,
Yeah.
um, you know. But let me let me introduce you real quick,
Yeah.
and then we'll jump back in. So today with us we have Lisa. She is a liberated menopause counseling consult. I'm reading the title like she is a consulting and coaching. That doesn't
Almost.
a liberated menopause consult and coach.
Yes.
Lisa's been with us before, and I'm really, really, really super happy to have her back. I was recently diagnosed with perimenopausal, and I immediately thought of you because why not?
I'm
I
so
was like,
glad.
well,
I'm so glad that my name is now synonymous with perimenopause. I love it.
so I'm really, really, I'm happy to have you here for one, to chat with you. Oh, I always love talking to you, but also, to kind of give my viewers a little refresher, and kind of show you doing kind of what you do, and yeah, I'm really excited to have you here and let's jump back in. So,
Yes. Well, thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it. And I also love our conversations. It's a great way to spend some time
yeah,
in my world, a very snowy morning.
that's so crazy to me because I mean, it's cold here, but it's like more rainy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. March in Ontario is hard because yesterday was like 11 degrees Celsius, which is, I'm not sure what that, I never know what the conversion is to Fahrenheit, but warm, like warmish. Sun was out, had my sunroof open. Today it's like -2 degrees Celsius. Everything froze. There's a pile of snow and there's like wind warnings. So March just is it's hard on the Canadian psyche. Let's just put it
But
that way.
it doesn't sound too different than the bipolarness of the weather here because it's
Mm,
also in the past week it's been raining, it's been cold, it's been hot. It's like
yeah.
it's that point where it's like I don't, maybe the weather is perimenopausal. I don't know. It just doesn't know what it's doing.
Transitional months, right? Everything transitional is a little bit challenging.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to kind of talk today about, you know, so I'll be 40 2 months from yesterday, and I know there are a lot of women like me who are like, okay, well, for me in particular, I had a partial hysterectomy in my very late 20s, so like 29. And, I've always kind of imagined, well, that might throw some things off for me, as far as that goes. Honestly, I kind of expected to feel like this a little bit earlier, just because,
Mhm.
you know, um, I know the numbers that I hear for menopause is typically around 50. But I think my doctor said between like 40 and 60 is a more accurate number. But I think more people associate menopause with 50s or, perimenopause for a lot of people isn't even a thing that is acknowledged. A lot of people don't like, I just started hearing about perimenopause in the last couple years, and I've probably been experiencing it. I've been experiencing it within that time, so it's like, it's a word that hasn't been super common for a very long time. And I think it's great that there's more research out, there's more people who talk about it, there's more people who are knowledgeable and hey, how can I help you get through this period, which is more what you do. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about that.
About the work that I do, or about perimenopause itself.
About you in particular and what you
Okay.
do.
Yeah. So I work predominantly right now with organizations and helping them create menopause empowered workplaces. So I'm doing a lot of work currently with education, with educator unions. When we think about caring or caregiving professions, so teaching, nursing, um, the range of helping professions, what's the median age of those folks and gender, right? It's
Yeah,
predominantly women who are in their, mid 30s into their 50s.
yeah,
So the bulk of those workforces are women who are perimenopausal.
yeah,
And the trends that we're seeing are that women are leaving the workforce, right? 1 in 10 Canadian women are leaving the workforce due to unsupported perimenopause and menopause symptoms. And the
wow,
numbers are very similar in the US. 1 in 5 women consider it.
wow.
So we are losing women at the peak of their careers, who are so valuable to their organizations because they are completely unsupported. So
Yes.
I go in, I do professional learning with the humans who are experiencing it, with their organizations, and help them write policy to support how do we keep women in the workforce if that's what they want, right? For some people, the right choice is like, I'm done. I want to do something else now.
Right.
Totally fine. But we want everyone to make sure that they are making an educated choice, that they know everything that's happening with them in their own bodies, because that's part of my own story. I was an educator for 20 years and I resigned almost 2 years ago. And part of what was playing a role in that was perimenopause, but I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would not change my choice. And it would have been great to have been fully informed. So
Right.
that is a lot of the work that I'm doing. The When I work individually with women, I help them. Women will come to me, some sort of like you did. This is what I've been told. What do I need to know? So I provide you with the information that you need. And then when you are working with your healthcare providers, then I help you implement that change. That's the role of a coach, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of time, women will go to their primary care physician or their naturopath or whoever it is that they are working with. They get a ton of information. It feels overwhelming. And so what happens? Nothing. Because we
Yeah.
have so many other things happening in our world. We just don't
Right.
have the time to like sit down and go, okay, what do I need to implement first? What's one small step I can do to do that? So I create that plan for you and I hold you accountable to it.
That's perfect. Had I not gone for my annual checkup, I probably wouldn't have asked a professional about it. Like I kind of threw it around with my primary doctor, but I'm also very like, what can I try without medication?
Mhm.
And I know that lifestyle changes, certain habits, and education are very prominent to successfully navigating things like this. There's things as approaching 40 that I'm naturally like, okay, I need to maybe change this. I need to focus more on this. And, but then you have work and you have kids and you have a spouse or not, or, pets and
Mhm.
mortgages and, things. It's like we know naturally, as specifically as moms or just as women in general, that we don't prioritize us up here And a lot of times we lack treatment of things because it's like it's not really convenient to take time out to do this. Sometimes it's not convenient or it doesn't feel convenient to take time out to learn about it. Okay, well, this is just what it is. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. I remember with my mom, we were in Dollar General one time and she's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And she like goes in the bathroom and rips her clothes off because she's so hot. And I'm like, that's crazy, you know? And I'm like, that I don't want to go through that, but it's part of life and I'm gonna have to go through it one day. And there was one point I'm like, man, I get so hot at night lately. And I thought maybe it was just our house is old. Our house is basically the same age as me. So for a house, that's not very youthful, you know? And I mean, it was built the same year, so it's like, oh, okay. Uh, but it's our room is close to the garage, not directly above, but like our garage is it's attached, but it's not. It's you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Where
I totally get it.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
But so it's like I think that part of that is like our room gets hotter or colder, and
right.
sometimes I think it's affected by placement, but my husband, on the other hand, so I have my bed. We sleep so differently. I have mine and he has his, and he'll be over there cold. And I'm like, I need a fan to sleep at night. And I've never been a fan on at night person like that. Like, like I have two blankets. I put those blankets on every night, no matter what the temperature is outside, and I sleep or I kick it off, whatever. But I've never been like, I need little fans beside me to sleep, then I need a fan blowing on me over here. And it's like, it's crazy. Okay, well maybe it's just, that's just how the house is. The room is weird, whatever. And then I'm like, I'm so hot every night to where I feel like my mom, like ripping the blanket off, like I I'm not a sleep naked person, but if I was, there would have been a lot of nights. You know? I'm just like,
Absolutely.
but I didn't really put two and two together on that. I'm like, oh, it's just the room, whatever. I don't know. He's cold because we're never the same temperature lately, which is not something that I picked up on until I did. And I'm like,
Hmm.
we're so different lately. Kind of thing.
Yeah,
So there's things, but that it wasn't something I was going to go to the doctor about because I don't want you to feed me medication. And it's just I'll get to it when I get to it. I'll just deal with it. And I think that's a lot of people that like, okay, well, this is just a part of life. It's just gonna, or medication's gonna be expensive or blah blah blah. And I go and they're like, okay, well, estrogen or depression medicine, and I'm like, but estrogen can highly increase your risk of cancer and all this. And I'm like,
no, it
my husband's
cannot.
like, my husband's like, that's a hard no.
So I'm going to jump in because there's a couple
Yeah,
of things. So I'm
yeah,
so glad you talked about like just having experiences that are different.
yeah,
So whether they're connected to like body temperature or not, when you start noticing like things that you have always done or states of being that you've always been in, and suddenly it's different, that's one of the signs that peri chaos, right? Dr. Mary Claire Haber, who's one of the leading physicians doing this work, she talks about that. So it's the fluctuation of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in our bodies it's chaotic because it's constantly fluctuating. So for some people, it shows up as heat. For some people, it shows up as night sweats. For some people, it shows up as anxiety. For some people, it shows up as um, I have eaten and worked out in this way for like decades, and suddenly I have more belly fat than I did before. What is going on? Right. So it's just these subtle
yeah,
shifts that start
yeah,
happening that are the like they're there's something changing. There's some chaos
yeah,
that's starting to happen in our bodies.
yeah,
And then the other thing I want to address, I'm sure people who listen to these podcasts have heard this, but um, that idea that estrogen is a direct correlation to increased breast cancer is false.
hmm,
So the WHI released a study in the early 2000s that was deeply flawed. So the sample that they used were with older women who already had increased risks for breast cancer. And then the actual numbers that were reported by the media were also very inflated. They did not provide the necessary context around what they were seeing. And
Okay.
what ended up happening in that generation of women. So I remember it because my grandmother was on menopause hormone therapy. I remember my mom reading about this study. She came, we went over to her house. She's like, Mom, you have to get off this medication right now. So she did. So, like, I remember this happening.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was, and Dr. Peter Attia, who's done tons of work around longevity, he was talking about this research. More women ended up dying from broken hips because of osteoporosis, the increased risk to our bone health because of lack of estrogen, than ever died from an increased risk of breast cancer from menopause hormone therapy.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, but once you put information out into the world like that, it is really hard to turn that ship around
Yeah.
because breast cancer is so scary, right?
Right.
Yes. Or increased risk of cancer, period, feels really scary.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone all have protective factors for every single system in our bodies. So it's not just our bones, it's also digestion, it's also muscle and joint tissue, it is brain health. We're learning more and more about what happens to our brains when we have decreased levels of estrogen. We are learning about what happens to our cardiovascular system, right? That's why women are actually at a much higher risk of cardiovascular disease. It's because we've had estrogen protecting our system all this time. It declines, and now we're at greater risk.
Hmm.
So women, although live longer than men,
It's
statistically,
just, yeah.
their quality of life for that last decade is significantly less than their
Hmm.
male counterparts. So there's so much information. And my position is never to tell you what you should do,
Right. Yeah.
but it's important to have all the information so that you make the most informed choice possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, the lifestyle pieces are also essential. Like it's not a one or the other conversation, right? It like even if you choose menopause hormone therapy, you still need all the lifestyle
Right.
components.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's a really holistic conversation.
Yeah. It's it's funny kind of, but that, you mentioned a lot of this because I love working out. I love going to the gym. I love the experience. Like there
Mhm.
was a time where I would be there an hour to 3 hours a day. Not every day, but when I went 3 to 4 times a week, and I missed that. And I've had this kind of love-hate relationship with the gym. I'm so fatigued all the time, and it doesn't matter how much how I sleep that night. I want to like I had a membership for a whole year and barely used it. And so I stopped it and I said, okay, I picked it back up at the cheapest one. And that way, if I didn't use it, it was only costing me $15 a month. And I went twice and I loved it. I love it every time I'm there. But then I just like haven't gone back because I'm just blah blah blah. And it's like I miss that feeling, like I miss not feeling the way that I feel. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah, absolutely. And those like working out, especially resistance training, right? So lifting weights
yeah,
is foundational. When I start working with women, that's where I start because it has positive impacts on every single other aspect, on nutrition, on sleep, on stress management, on all the things.
yeah,
And absolutely. I have gotten up and worked out every morning for 7 years, and it's never motivation has never been an issue. Well,
yeah.
I mean, when I first started, it was hard, but
Right.
then once, right, once I got into it, now I have to talk myself into it. Part of
Yeah.
it is, yeah. And part of it is like our bodies now require different things.
Mm,
And it's kind
yeah.
of reconciling these two ideas of like working out every day now is actually detrimental to my body.
Yeah.
Working out 3, 4 times a week, great. Although I still like move, so I'll go out and walk or I'll do
Right.
yoga, but I don't lift weights every single day anymore. And
Mhm.
that is actually now feeding my body and making it stronger because my muscles just need more time to heal than they did before.
Right.
The other part is 30-minute workouts. So that is kind of it's a really good number because we still like cortisol gets a bad rap. It's a hormone that we need. It's part of the get up and go, but it's when we get into cortisol overload that it becomes an issue. And in
Yeah.
perimenopausal bodies, when we go beyond that half hour of really strenuous work, cortisol is now working against us.
Hmm.
So letting yourself know, like this 30 minutes, that's that can feel a little bit more doable
Yeah.
and it's better for our bodies at this point. So it's just getting and because we have been programmed for so long of what movement should look like, what we should be doing, how long we should be spending.
Yeah.
It's like it's doing that reconciliation work in our brains is like actually doing less is going to do more for my body.
Mhm. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Um, sorry. For purposes of your coaching in itself, can you just describe your coaching style? I know you briefly talked about it a little bit, incorporating education and things like that, but do you have or is that your coaching style? Do you have a particular, like if someone asked you who would never talked to you before, what's your coaching style? What would you tell them?
I would say it is very individual and unique to you as a person.
I love that.
So, yeah. So, the first thing I do when I meet with someone is get to know you, right? Like, what's your history? What are you feeling? Who have you seen? Do you have any plans currently? Are there coaches that you worked with before? Were there things that worked or that really didn't work? So, I gather all that sort of information.
Hmm.
If you're someone who just is like, Lisa, I just know I'm not feeling right in my body and I don't know anything else, then I will connect you to some folks who I know who are really skilled in working with women who are perimenopausal. So I personally work with a naturopath who's brilliant because she looks at the whole system.
Yeah.
So I often will refer to that person, or I'll give you language to you to take to your doctor. I have sort of a guide for how to talk to your doctor about what is happening.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, so that is where we'll start if you're somebody who's like, I don't know anything and I need to start. So I'll
Yeah.
give you some information, give you some tools for talking to your healthcare practitioner. And then so for example, I currently am really like in it with my naturopath because I'm turning 48 this year. And I have noticed I'm like, it's time. Like I have been managing all of my symptoms with movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress management for the last couple of years. But now I've started noticing, like, no, it's time for me now to start talking about menopause hormone therapy with someone who's knowledgeable.
Gotcha.
So I got all my blood work done. We had a follow-up meeting to look at all of those things. So I have some like tweaks that I need to make to my nutrition. I have some tweaks that I need to make to my movement. Um, and then I'll start the medication part. But what if I were my own client? I would say, okay, bring me the plan from your naturopath. Let's look at all of the suggestions. We're going to pick one and we're going to start with that one and we're going to build up into a sustainable routine. So
Yeah.
we start with one small action. So for me, one of the things that showed up is that my cholesterol is a little bit elevated. Not enough that I need medication, and there are things that we can do through nutrition. But one of them is like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have to take Metamucil now. I'm like, oh God, does that make me officially a golden girl? Like, what is going on with this? So I know that I have blocks around wanting to do that because it feels like something an old person would do,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So we'll work
Yeah.
through those blocks and then I will support you. And like yesterday, I went to the pharmacy and I bought my thing of Metamucil and I came home and I took it right away to start. So it's like, so we make a plan for
Yeah.
how to intentionally incorporate that into your day to day. Same with like my vitamin D was very low,
Hmm.
and I'm hit and miss with taking vitamin D. I always have it in the cabinet, but I don't have a good
Same.
routine around it. So
Same.
then, yeah. So if you're my client, I'm like, okay, here is what we do to make sure that you're incorporating vitamin D every day. And then I check in with you every day to help keep you accountable in a kind and supportive way.
Yeah, I love that. I think that shit, I just completely lost my train of thought.
Yeah, welcome to the perimenopausal brain, my friend.
Some of this stuff I'm like, oh, I just chalked it off to ADHD, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. I had a really good point that I was gonna make too. Jeez. Um,
It'll come back around eventually. It always does.
oh, baby steps. I think that, pointing out, okay, let's start with baby steps. I think a lot of times we look at a diagnosis as like, oh my God, okay, what do I do now? Like now especially when you think, and this is accurate for me too, because I'm like, okay, well, I have gained weight. And I'm like, I've been focused on, well, I turned 40 in 2 months. I want to be in a certain shape. I want to be in a certain place in my business. And so many things have gotten shaken up the past couple of weeks that like it doesn't look at all what I thought it was going to look like. And I've also actively, okay, don't stress about that. Like, who cares? It's not a requirement that you go into 40 being this or what you're going to get stoned or something. Like, whatever. I probably didn't go into 30 where I thought I would, but I'm in much better places going into 40 than I was 30, 35, So it's like, but I think that sometimes we get overwhelmed with all of the things we have to focus on. And we feel like there's a lot of things we have to change, a lot of things we have to modify. And I really think that I think it's really, really good, the baby steps kind of mindset, because if we feel overwhelmed with all the things we're going to do, and particularly too, I feel like when you add ADHD into that mix, I'm not getting anything done because I've got too much to get done.
Hmm. And it's like the human brain is wired for homeostasis, right? So it's
Yeah.
wired to keep us stable and where we're at. So it doesn't like change. So
Right.
the only way change happens successfully is, like you said, with really small steps, and also honoring the fact that yes, this change is happening for you,
Yeah.
and the rest of your life is still happening. So
Right.
right? Like we can't deny the fact that, you might have young children at home, you might have kids leaving for school, you might have a relationship that is struggling because of the changes that are happening for you. You might feel uncomfortable in your career. Like it's still all those things exist.
Yeah.
And so we have to consider your context into like what is actually going to be manageable.
Yeah.
So choosing like one small thing that you can commit to at least 80% of the time, because yeah, if we're not
I like
there, like
that
if
too. I
yeah,
like that
if
it's not 100%, it doesn't make you feel like, oh God, I gotta be perfect, you know,
yes.
leaving a little room to be a human.
Yeah, absolutely. And we write that narrative for ourselves too, right? Of like, oh, well, I didn't do it today, so now I failed and I might as well just like throw the whole
Right.
thing out. It's like,
Right.
no, that's
Right.
part of my like 80% plan. I'm still gonna show up even if I miss a day, it's okay.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's something that I have to tell myself from time to time. Like, okay, I went to Dunkin' this morning. Or I got a donut today. I very rarely eat donuts, but I don't know. There was like a week span when I got like one for 4 days. And I'm like, who the hell even am I? What am I doing? You know, and
Yeah,
so like I had a donut today, but now I'm not gonna achieve anything, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. Don't have a donut tomorrow, and then don't have a donut the next day, kind of thing.
yes,
And when you get to a place of where you have achieved your weight loss goal, then have one donut and then focus on, okay, not having a donut. You know what I mean?
yes, yes, yes. And so this is just like me personally.
Mhm.
We we take this life very seriously, and it's just like this is a very strange experiment that we're living in.
Right.
And so sometimes if you need like a little bit of pleasure and a little bit of joy, go for it. Like chocolate is a part of my daily routine. I will not deny that. Like we are
Really? I love
living
that for you.
we are living in deeply chaotic times and I need to find some joy in places. And for me, that's chocolate. So I have
Right.
some chocolate every day because damn it, like this is crazy.
Right.
And and we're at the end of the day, we all exit this world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yes, we want to take care of ourselves. And that also means, like, yes, caring for our body, yes, making good decisions for it, and also caring for like the pleasure of of living this life at the same time. Because
Yeah.
when it gets too serious and we're constantly wrapped up in like, I should, then and we're not enjoying our lives, then what's the point?
Right. Right. That brings to the importance of a healthy balance because when you're trying so hard for everything to be perfect and you're not enjoying it and then you die of a heart attack,
Yes.
then what was that? Was it really worth all of that? And
Yeah.
not to say anything outside of moderation is unhealthy, right? So that could be anything. That can be the things that, okay, well, this is good for me. But if that's all I do, you know, eh, I don't mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes. Yeah,
even,
absolutely.
you know,
We still have to have joy and pleasure to
yeah.
make all of the things that we do to care for ourselves worthwhile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially now, right? Where
Oh my God.
and it's and we also, it's important that you acknowledge that like regardless of where you fall and what you believe,
Right.
the world is chaotic,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And all of us are caught up in that, and so
Yes.
we also have to acknowledge our contexts
Yeah.
of what is happening, yes, personally, but we also are all living on this earth, and so what is happening collectively and how does that impact me? And you might even be someone who's like, oh, that doesn't impact me at all. Yes, it does.
That's
It
what,
does.
I mean, even whether it's emotionally from just knowing about things, whether it's
Yes.
financially for, whatever reason, no matter what, we are impacted by the things around us. Absolutely. That's a really good point to make too. And it impacts one of my favorite things ever is the wellness wheel. And, we have all these components that work together. And when one is majorly affected, all of them are infected, all of the other components are affected in some kind of way. And if even if it's just your emotional health is affected by the things going on around you, well, that's also, another thing I think that we forget, and especially having teenagers, this is something that I kind of like, I talk about from time to time with them. 'Cause it's like, well, as children and teenagers, whether it's you don't know or you just don't think, like there's things inside of us that physically and chemically happen, and the things around us can impact that. And sometimes the things they're happening inside our bodies, so we don't see them. But it's really important to to point that out, that like our environment plays a part, and we could talk a whole thing about that too, about our environment and how it affects our bodies and everything like that. But I think that's just a really good point. This can be a difficult journey to go through, um, especially when you don't have the education that you need. And there are people out here that can help you with that. And there's tons of resources on the internet, reputable resources and things like that. And I will the people, Mary and Peter that you mentioned,
Mhm.
I'm going to put information about that literature in the notes as well. Just a couple examples of things to check out. But is there anything else you would like to say before you head out?
Oh gosh, I think we like dumped a lot of information on people. And so it's that. Like if you were listening, well, not if you're hearing me, you're listening to this conversation. Take like 1 minute after listening and just like what is it that sticks with you?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Like just take 1 minute in silence after you turn this off. What are the things that stick with you? Right, and just write them down because perimenopausal brains, brain fog, word recall, all the things, write them
yeah,
down. And then just focus on like one or two of those things that you wrote down. And that is like an excellent first step in giving back to yourself, right? You've been pouring into other people for probably your entire lifetime.
yeah,
Now it's time for you to start turning some of that like love and care towards yourself. So, yeah, that's it. Just like one or two things, small steps, and reach out for support. None of us were meant to do this alone. And there are lots of us out here who are like that. It's literally my job
yeah,
to support you in this. So, yeah, like grab onto the support and all the support and community that you can get.
yeah. Perfect. That's perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to talk to you again. And until next time. Check us out on YouTube at Rhea Higgs, ReaHhagues. You can also keep up with us on Instagram at Just the Who Podcast.